The Coast Guard also says reports of a ping from an emergency transmitter turned out to be erroneous. The National Transportation Safety Board will take over the investigation. President Clinton is offering prayers for the families as they wait. He says he hopes they will, quote, feel the power of God, the love of their friends, and prayers of fellow citizens. And hundreds of those fellow citizens are leaving flowers, candles, and poetry on the Kennedys' doorstep in New York City. Stay with Headline News for the latest on the search. The disappearance of John F. Kennedy's plane is dominating the news, not just in the United States, but around the globe. Richard Blystone reports.
For editors across the continent, here was news.
Продолжает интенсивные поиски Джона Кеннеди, сына бывшего президента США. Der Kennedy-Clan war eigentlich
Germany, Israel.
De l'avion de John Kennedy Jr.
France's First Channel gave the story 11 minutes of its 1 p.m. Sunday newscast.
Blessed with film star Luke's money and charm, he earned some...
And in Britain, too, the magic of the Kennedy myth, reaching out across the decades. But while some may have been following the search,
he was just so handsome and gorgeous and, yes, royalty.
These Britons were following the sun.
I mean, I wouldn't say that he's done anything particularly in his own right to justify fame. But then again, the media go over the top with regard to sort of most deaths of famous personalities, whether they deserve it or not, I think.
I think it's the silly season and there's not a lot of news and it's a big accident. And particularly, you know, it's an opportunity to rake through all the other tragedies that they've endured.
To young people in Britain, the Kennedys belong to your parents' generation, and Camelot.
Camelot. Is that where his house is or something? Or?
To most people in today's Britain, Camelot is the name of the National Lottery Company. Time and successive scandals have worn the luster off celebrity, but like it or not, this day there's no other choice on page one. Richard Blystone, CNN, London.
Nearby are constantly filled with people having late-night cookouts, clam bakes. What isn't there a pretty measurable chance? The rumor all day that a fisherman saw something, was out at sea, took his time reporting it, not until this afternoon. Isn't there a pretty measurable chance that someone saw an aircraft going too fast for its size or type, too low, something like that?
Well, it could be that we've talked all day about the fact that there was probably heavy haze at the time. So a plane at 2,000 feet, about where it's rumored that the last blips were seen, or blips very near the end, and a plane that far off the coast, the haze would be the controlling thing there. That may have been why no witnesses have come forward that we know of yet. It may also be that authorities have heard from somebody and just haven't had the time to run it down to the point where they're confident enough to put it out.
Those just joining our coverage, we've learned a few things in this press briefing. Bob Hager and I have been watching that has transpired in Massachusetts. More or less some additions to the list, some of which we knew about earlier. A cosmetic bag has been found. A pedal cover, meaning in all likelihood a black rubber cover for as you would use in a used car, to either extend the pedal on one of the rudders or ailerons, make it stickier a surface to grab whatever shoe you use to fly, make it a larger surface area. Made of pure rubber, it's bound to float. Some small fuselage pieces, and a prescription bottle with the former Carolyn Bessette's name, Carolyn Kennedy, imprinted on it. And Bob Hager, the rather grim question that the description of the small pieces of wreckage brings up, of course,
well, that would indicate
the angle of entry in the water.
Yes, that would indicate that this plane went in at a very sharp angle of descent, because a plane that hits water in a very downward attitude like that, it hits the water hard. The water would be just like the concrete of a roadway, and when you hit it like that, that would be the sort of impact that would spray the wreckage or break it up into pieces small, such as have been reported so far. But on the flip side of that, there have been wrecks where the initial wreckage was in small pieces. Swissair in Canada is a case in point, and then a big body of wreckage was found later. Well, TWA 800 was the same thing.
Bob, thanks for your expertise. Thanks also for all day long not speaking in past tense and reminding us that there is always reason, as the Coast Guard said today, more than one occasion, there is always hope. David Gregory has also been reminding us that there is always hope from his live reports from the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport. A little slip of land with 2 structures on it, circular driveway tonight, a very sad place. This was supposed to be the middle of a wedding reception for RFK's youngest daughter, Rory. David?
Brian, it has become a grim night at the Kennedy compound, and a night full of questions, namely for us, will we hear from the Kennedy family at all tonight? It was curious that in the morning hours they did have a spokesman coming out, briefing reporters who were assembled here on the mood inside, of course, and other comings and goings, as you point out, for the reception that was planned, the wedding that was planned for Rory Kennedy, the cousin of John F. Kennedy Jr. We have not heard from that spokesman nor anyone from the family all day long. Since about noon Eastern time, there has been no word. The sights here at the Kennedy compound, family members going in and out of the homes that make up this rather small compound here on the Atlantic on Cape Cod. There were those, including caterers and other vendors, who came by throughout the day who were to be part of this joyous celebration that has now turned into a gathering of family, more than 50 in number of the Kennedys who are here, who were already here as of yesterday in preparation for the wedding, who stayed. Other guests who were encouraged to stay even after the news came in, stay with the Kennedy family as they prayed throughout the day. We have reported throughout this long day about an impromptu mass that came together on the front porch of Ethel Kennedy's house with local clergy and friends and family members speaking from the heart, according to a family spokesman, about these 3 members of the family who are feared lost at this late hour at the Kennedy compound. But still, Brian, no official word coming from any of the Kennedys, as has been mentioned throughout the day. Senator Ted Kennedy has been coordinating a lot of the communication out of the compound, making a number of calls, including speaking to the president and the vice president and others, but the family has held vigil quietly, somberly throughout the day, Brian.
David Gregory at one very sad place this evening, has been all day since his arrival there this morning, and another is in the Tribeca section of Lower Manhattan, where outside a building with a nondescript entrance that upstairs houses the converted loft that is home to 2 relative newlyweds still, John Kennedy, Carolyn Bessette. There has been a steady stream of people, some of them neighbors, who recognize John and Carolyn as local patrons of restaurants, newsstands, and see them on the streets, coming by fearful that the worst will happen, and the worst fears will be confirmed with a discovery off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. Gulston Dart has been there, stationed for us all day. Gulston.
Hi, Brian. Well, it feels like a typical steamy Saturday night here in summertime in Manhattan. And as you look up and down the sidewalks here on North Moore Street, you can notice people dressed up, ready to go to their favorite restaurant or favorite club tonight. But there is a new stop, as you mentioned, along the sidewalk here tonight. That's over at 20 North Moore Street, where people have been coming throughout the entire afternoon and now into the early evening, into the mid-evening, dropping off letters, flowers and candles at the front stoop where John Kennedy and Carolyn Bessette Kennedy make their residence. Of course, we know that it's still a search mission, but people have been fearing the worst all day long. They've been bringing by little mementos to memorialize John Kennedy and his wife and her sister. Earlier this afternoon, I spoke with one woman. She told us why she decided to come by and drop off some flowers. Anyway, a lot of people have decided to come out here and see what it is that is happening out here. We have a few onlookers who are watching perhaps us a little bit, the media, but also just looking at the front of the apartment there. You know, it's Brian, when you start talking to some of the people out here, the locals that is, who live here in this part of New York on the Lower West Side called Tribeca, also some people who live a bit further up in the Village, they tell you as they've seen John and Carolyn go about their daily lives here, very public people obviously, but also savoring the chance to still be a part of the New York scene, the New York experience and to find some sense of normalcy in their everyday lives. They love to go to some of the various restaurants up and down the street here and try to blend into the rest of the crowd here. It's a pretty high-profile area here. A couple of actors, Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro, live just right around the corner. So a lot of other high-profile people here, but still, even with that, I think if you talk to a lot of the people, they will tell you what they told us today, and that is that John Kennedy and Carolyn Kennedy felt very at home here.
Gulston Dart in Tribeca section of Manhattan, thank you. When you learned that